All right, we've got this video from CNN. It's called "Trump says U.S. military struck ISIS terrorists in Nigeria." When I heard about this, this was pretty positive news. I was glad to hear this because we've all heard about what's been going on with the Christians in Nigeria. Now, I will say my support for this and jubilance at these strikes has been as a Christian, not necessarily as an American. I think as an American, America needs to be involved internationally far less than it is now. But as a Christian, Christians are my people. So I'm really glad to see Trump taking a stand to defend Christians in this way, attacking ISIS, who have been attacking Christians in Nigeria for quite some time now.
Breaking news this morning, we are learning new details about the deadly strike operation that President Trump says he ordered on Islamic State terrorists in Nigeria. Listen to this. That, as you can see, released from the Department of Defense yesterday evening. The U.S. military reports multiple ISIS terrorists were killed in the attack, which the president first announced on social media. This comes after the president for months has warned that the United States could take military action in the African nation, claiming that ISIS had been targeting Christians in the region. The president writing in part this on social media about it: "I have previously warned that these terrorists, that if they did not stop the slaughtering of Christians, there would be hell to pay." And tonight, he goes on to say, the Department of War executed numerous perfect strikes, as only the United States is capable of doing. Now, Nigeria confirmed the two countries coordinated in this effort, in this strike. Their foreign minister joined CNN earlier this morning.
What took place yesterday clearly underscores the fact that Nigeria is not lacking in will and a commitment to the fight against terrorism.
This is really good because I think we've seen from the country of Nigeria some hesitation to admit that Christians are getting attacked and it's becoming at least a massacre, not a genocide, and this is something that needs to be stopped and halted. Nice to see them taking action. Most likely, probably with a little bit of prodding for the United States, but I will most certainly take what we can get.
CNN's Nada Bashir tracking this one for us. Nada, what is the very latest that you're picking up?
Well, we're still not getting full details just yet from U.S. officials with regards to the details surrounding this strike. What we do know is the U.S. Africa Command has said that multiple Islamic State targets and militants were killed overnight in these deadly strikes. We've heard, as you mentioned, from the U.S. president himself addressing this military action in social media, saying and describing this as a powerful and deadly strike against Islamic State terrorists. And this strike took place in the northern Sokoto region of Nigeria, just bordering Niger. Now, at this stage, again, no clear details with regards to the impact. What we do know is that this was carried out in coordination with the Nigerian government. We've heard from a Nigerian presidential spokesperson and advisor saying that both the U.S. and Nigeria are on the same page when it comes to tackling these security concerns. And of course, what we've been hearing from the White House for several weeks now, and from the U.S. president himself, is the ramping up of concern around the protection of Nigeria's Christian community against extremist attacks. And it's important to note and underscore that, of course, Nigeria does have a deep-rooted history of security troubles when it comes to Islamist extremist groups. But these attacks that we have seen in the past have targeted both Nigeria's Christian and Muslim communities, two of the largest religious communities in the country. So this is certainly a historic concern within the country, but we are now seeing very clearly that first-hand action by the U.S. military in Nigeria, according to officials, in coordination with the Nigerian government.
Nada, thank you so much. Much more detail to learn here for sure. Appreciate it.
And the president warning, of course, there could be more to come in Nigeria, writing on Truth Social.
That'd be interesting.
Quote, dead terrorists, warning there will be...
I actually didn't know that Trump was planning on striking Nigeria again. Because the thing is, with strikes like these, I feel like it'd be wisest to you do the strike and then you see what the reaction is going to be. If you strike the enemies and they're like, all right, we'll back off, sorry about that, Daddy Trump, then maybe you don't need to do more strikes. I understand ISIS is bad, but the whole point is to get them to stop attacking Christians. If they stop attacking Christians, then the mission was successful, right? So
In his words, many more if the slaughter...
Actually, you know what? He actually adds that caveat. Sorry, I should have been reading the words as I was speaking. It does say, says, "May God bless our military and Merry Christmas to all, including the dead terrorists." Trump is a troll, man. Of which there will be many more if the slaughter of Christians continue.
Of Christians continues. Joining me now in the group chat, Sungmin Kim, CNN political analyst and White House reporter at the Associated Press. Ashley Davis.
You're calling this a group chat? Well, this is boomer nomenclature for boomer viewers. Like this is what CNN is for boomers. You call this a group chat? Yeah, whatever. I'm not gonna die on this hill, but that's ridiculous.
Davis, former George W. Bush White House official, and Eugene Scott, contributing columnist at the Boston Globe and visiting fellow at the Johns Hopkins University Agora Institute. It's nice to see all of you this morning. Sungmin, when we look at where things stand, the fact that the president really has cast himself as this peacemaker, often talks about the wars that he says that he has ended, and yet we are seeing this approach not just in Nigeria, but in other pockets around the world. How do we square what we hear from the president and what we see on the ground?
Well, how the administration squares it is that this is all part of President Trump's strategy, his foreign policy doctrine of peace through strength, obviously. However, you have, on the one hand, you have, him touting all the conflicts that he has helped resolve abroad, but then you see a lot of offensive military action abroad. And, his aides don't see that necessarily as a contradiction. They say that part of keeping broader peace is making sure that these targets abroad know that the U.S. is willing to strike if necessary. But I also think that this is a contradiction that you're going to be hearing on Capitol Hill, particularly as it relates to these strikes and and the strikes that we've been seeing elsewhere in the country. You have
this is so stupid. We have people who are at the very least terrorizing and slaughtering civilians, right? These militant groups, right? It's not just ISIS, by the way. You've got the Fulani herdsmen. You've got other groups over in the region killing Christians and civilians. The idea that striking those people cannot possibly be in the interest of peace is just like, it almost feels like naked propaganda. Well, maybe this is the case. Maybe this is how average people think. I don't know. But it's crazy that striking ISIS is the opposite of trying to have peace throughout the world. That's crazy to me. That's crazy. Like, if Trump was to put boots in the, like, all these lefties, hate Russia. If Trump were to put boots in the ground in Russia, in Ukraine, would they say that this means that Trump does not support peace? No, that would be absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd.
You had the Pentagon saying yesterday that, they did this in coordination with Nigeria's government. However, you're already starting to hear from, Capitol Hill. What about coordination with us? Is this something that, lawmakers should have authorized? And I think that tension, that conflict is also what we're going to be hearing in the next coming weeks.
Yeah, one would anticipate that, especially we'll likely hear a little bit of it today, but certainly once lawmakers return from their recess. It's also interesting, the president this is not the first time he has called out what he says are targeted attacks on Christians. It's important to note the country itself is about split between Christian and Muslim faith, and the data doesn't necessarily support the president's claim that Christians are being disproportionately targeted.
I'm a little bit tired about hearing this. This is a straight up propaganda segment. Name me 10 instances over the past 2 years where non-Christians were targeted in these attacks, and I'll sit down from this position. The chat's open. I haven't disabled comments, so hey, let me know. I'm all ears on some examples of non-Christians being targeted in Nigeria. I'm waiting.
Ashley, this has been, though religious persecution has been a really animating subject matter, if you will, for many conservatives. Does it matter to them that the data doesn't line up? Because that is a significant issue.
Well, good morning, Erica. Nice to see you, and hope everyone had a great Christmas. But I think that it's really important that we need to realize that there's two things. One, that we did coordinate with the government of Nigeria, and two, Nigeria is a really complicated country that we've been dealing with. I mean, I'm a national security hawk, go back to George Bush administration. There's been terrorist breeding in that region for a long time. What I just learned this morning was the fact that we coordinated, which makes it less complicated than before. But I'm very happy that the administration is actually striking in abroad rather than them coming and striking us in our country. In regards to the
Bro. Did they literally just get like the dumbest panelists to be here in this group chat? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just the thought of ISIS. I'm sorry. The thought of ISIS striking America from Nigeria is just absurd to me. There's no way that would ever happen. What is she talking about? What?
The Christian and Muslim controversies. I mean, we don't know what we don't know. It's so complicated. There's a lot of national security complications that are overlaid between the two groups that the ISIS and terrorist groups are hiding behind the Muslim religion. And so I think that we need to be very cautious that this is, including with the president, that this is a religious attack.
Yeah, caution definitely advised. I will just say, just based on our reporting, the data does not support the claims that Christians are being disproportionately targeted. To your point, there are a number of disputes internally. It's not just religious, it's communal. It has to do with ethnic tensions, farmer-herder disputes. There's a lot happening in Nigeria specifically. You know, when we look at Eugene, when we look at the way that this is playing out, well, we're also looking at new movement off the coast of Venezuela. What does this tell you about the focus moving forward when it comes to not just where the U.S. is leaning in internationally, but what it could mean in terms of support domestically when there are these questions continually raised about Congress and even notifications?
Well, that is one of the main questions many lawmakers have, including some on the right. There seems to not be some consistency in terms of vision. If there is a foreign policy agenda, which obviously there is, it hasn't been communicated in a way that it's clearly understood and supported with even some of the people in the president's base. I've talked to voters, and they're very concerned sometimes that they don't know what the next move is going to be from this president in terms of global conflicts and international affairs, and how inconsistent it seems to be with what he campaigned on. Part of that is because we know that the president's support is actually...
What's inconsistent? There's no inconsistency. There's literally no inconsistency. Give me like 5 inconsistencies. There's none, and it is completely irrelevant because right now we're talking about ISIS in Nigeria. There's 0 inconsistencies in this conflict. I don't know what he's talking about.
Actually more ideologically diverse than I think a lot of people outside of his camp realize. And so there's
that's
issues
true.
that are of concern and major priorities for one segment, such as perhaps Christian conservatives, and not others, which might be some of the individuals who want to see America pull back from some of these types of interactions. And so I think what will be really interesting moving forward when the new year begins is seeing what is laid out, what type of vision is communicated, and how the president is able to get different sects within his tribe on the same page.
Interesting. I want to see what the reception of this was. Now I will never get my money back. Now I'll never get my money promised to me from the Nigerian prince. Yeah, rip that dude. Rip that dude. This is from Knee1 here from 5836. When you hate Trump so much, you get salty over terrorists dying. True. Ryan Ross W5K says, came here to see the ISIS supporters. Let's see. You've got this from IKLLNP. Why don't the CNN reporter live in Nigeria for a couple weeks to analyze her data, whether it's disproportional? Yeah, that's one thing too. You know, I've seen videos and stuff of Nigerians. There's a compilation. I wish I had it on me. There was a compilation of Nigerians praising Donald Trump for his actions in Nigeria. the Nigerian government cooperated with America. Nigerians support this action against ISIS. I haven't seen a single clip of a Nigerian saying, I don't support this action. So it seems to me like the state of America wants to stop the slaughtering of these Christians. Nigeria wants to stop the slaughtering of these Christians. The majority of Nigerians want to stop the slaughtering of these Christians. The people who don't care are CNN, which I think certainly tells you a whole lot about CNN, their interest in how they feel about Christians.